The architectural drawing Marcus Delaney kept in his office, the original one, hand-drafted in blue ink on drafting paper, before anyone had agreed to finance a single floor of Meridian Commons, showed a service corridor on the east side of the building that curved slightly inward at the midpoint, creating a natural alcove large enough for a small seating area. The alcove was still there, but the bespoke wooden bench he had specified, the one made from reclaimed timber salvaged from the warehouse that had stood on this lot for 60 years before they broke ground, had been replaced at some point with a generic brushed aluminum fixture that could have come from any commercial supply catalog in the country. Marcus noticed it, the way he always noticed things in this building, quietly, without reacting, storing it in the back of his mind, the way you store a name you'll need later. "Daddy," Lily tugged his hand. She was 8 years old and had her mother's way of cutting straight to the thing everyone else was stepping around. "That bench is ugly." "It is," Marcus agreed. The old one was better. He looked down at her. She was wearing her Saturday sneakers, the ones with the small paint smudge on the left toe from the art project 3 weeks ago that had never fully washed out. And she was holding a folded piece of notebook paper in her free hand, a list she had written herself in careful block letters of the things she wanted to look for today. A lamp for her room, a picture frame for the drawing she'd made of their dog, maybe a candle that smelled like the ocean, because she had decided recently that she liked the ocean, even though she had only seen it twice. "How do you know about the old one?" Marcus asked. Lily looked up at him with the patient expression of someone explaining something obvious. "Because you told me. You said it was made from the old building." "I did tell you that." "So?" She looked at the aluminum bench, unimpressed. "Someone changed it." Someone did. He would find out who had authorized the replacement. Not today. Today was Saturday, and today was for Lily and her list, and the lamp she wanted for her room. But he would find out. That was the thing about owning a building. It never fully stopped being yours, even when you were standing in it in jeans and a faded university sweatshirt and worn sneakers, holding the hand of your 8-year-old daughter. And nobody in the corridor gave you a second look. Marcus Delaney had founded Delaney Properties Group at the age of 26 with $32,000 in savings, a business plan he had revised 41 times, and a conviction which he had never been entirely able to explain to anyone's satisfaction, that the neglected industrial corridor on the east side of the city was going to become something worth building. It had taken 7 years, 3 rounds of financing, 1 bankruptcy scare that had cost him 8 months of sleep, and more conversations with city planning officials than he could count. But Meridian Commons had opened 4 years ago, and it was now one of the most successful mixed-use retail developments in the region. 212,000 square feet of retail and dining space, a residential tower above the East Wing, a public plaza that had won 2 design awards, and a waiting list of tenants who wanted in. He came on Saturdays, unannounced, in ordinary clothes, because he had learned early that the version of his building he saw when his name was on the visitor badge was not the same building his customers experienced. He had never told his management team he did this. He didn't come to catch people doing something wrong. He came to see what was actually true. Today he had Lily with him because it was his Saturday, his and hers, and she had asked to come. She liked the atrium, she had told him, the way the light came in through the skylights in the afternoon and made the whole space look like the inside of something that was thinking. He had not corrected her description because he thought it was the best one he'd heard. They stopped at the building directory near the main entrance, the large illuminated map that showed the layout of all 3 levels. Marcus scanned it with the practiced eye of someone who had memorized the floor plan, but still checked every time for whatever had changed. A small notation in the legend had been updated. A tenant on the 2nd floor had apparently rebranded, and the directory hadn't been fully corrected yet. The old name was still there, in faint text beneath the new one, a ghost of whatever the space had been before. Lily was consulting her list. Apex Lifestyle, she read aloud, sounding out the words. That's the one with the lamps. Maya told me they have the best lamps. Maya from school. Maya from dance. Lily folded her list carefully. She said they have one that looks like a moon. Marcus had read the Apex Lifestyle lease agreement a total of 3 times. Once when they first signed, once when they came up for a renewal discussion 18 months ago, and once last week when his CFO, James Whitfield, had sent over the draft renewal terms for the current cycle. He knew the square footage, the base rent per annum, the revenue share clause, and the personal guarantee terms. He also knew from the quarterly reports his property manager sent over that Apex Lifestyle was a consistent performer. Solid foot traffic, above average conversion rate, no significant complaints on record. What the quarterly reports could not tell him was what it felt like to walk in. Level 2, he said, reading from the directory. East Wing. Lily nodded, already walking toward the escalator with the confidence of someone who knew exactly where she was going. Marcus followed her, and as he did, he passed the alcove with the aluminum bench again. He pulled out his phone, and without breaking stride, took a quiet photo of it. Not for any urgent reason, just because things you notice and don't record have a way of disappearing. The escalator carried them up through the atrium, past the glass railing that looked out over the ground floor plaza, where a few weekend shoppers were moving between the coffee kiosk and the bookshop with the green awning. The afternoon light was coming in at the angle that made the space look the way Lily had described it, interior luminous thinking. Marcus had fought the planning committee for those skylights. 2 separate meetings, 2 separate sets of revised drawings. He had never regretted it. Apex Lifestyle occupied a corner unit on the 2nd level, its storefront done in matte black and warm wood tones, large windows displaying a carefully curated arrangement of home goods, lighting, textiles, small decorative objects in a palette of cream sage and slate gray. The name was set in brushed gold lettering above the entrance. It was a good-looking store. Marcus knew the build-out cost per square foot because his leasing team had negotiated the tenant improvement allowance, and he knew that Apex had spent above the allowance on their own dime, which he had considered a positive sign at the time. They walked in together, Marcus and Lily, on a Saturday afternoon in jeans and sneakers, with Lily still holding her folded list. There were 4 staff members visible on the floor, 2 near the central display, 1 restocking a shelf near the back, and 1 positioned near the register. The store was moderately busy. Several other customers were browsing. A soft instrumental track played at a volume that suggested the store wanted you to linger without quite committing to helping you do so. Marcus did not expect to be greeted immediately. He understood retail, and he understood that a single dad in casual clothes, with a child who was clearly there for a lamp and possibly a candle that smelled like the ocean, was not, visually speaking, the customer profile that a store like Apex Lifestyle had been trained to prioritize. What he noticed was not that he wasn't greeted right away. What he noticed was that 2 of the 4 staff members made eye contact with him, and then, within a moment that was too deliberate to be coincidence, looked away and found somewhere else to be. The person near the register picked up a tablet and became very interested in it. The person near the central display moved toward the back of the store with a purposefulness that did not seem to have a specific destination. Lily walked directly to a display of table lamps near the window and stopped in front of one that was round and pale and lit from within. "Daddy," she said, "look." Marcus looked. It was a good lamp. "Can I see if it comes in a different color?" Lily asked. He looked around for someone to ask. The staff member who had been near the central display had made it to the back wall and was now straightening items that from where Marcus stood did not appear to need straightening. The person at the register was still absorbed in the tablet. Marcus was patient. He had been building things his whole life, and building things required patience in quantities that most people found unreasonable. He was not unreasonable. He stood beside his daughter and looked at the lamp and waited. He had waited longer for things that mattered more. He could wait a little while for this. The staff member who finally approached them was a young woman whose name tag read Jess. She came from the direction of the back wall, where she had been straightening things that didn't need straightening, and she walked toward Marcus and Lily with the specific energy of someone who had been sent, rather than someone who had chosen to come. Her smile arrived a half second after it should have, landing just slightly out of sync with her footsteps. "Hi there," she said, addressing the middle distance between Marcus and Lily, rather than either of them directly. "Hi." Marcus kept his voice even. "My daughter is interested in that lamp. She was wondering if it comes in other colorways." Jess glanced at the lamp, and then at Lily, and then briefly at Marcus, and then back at the lamp. "That particular style," she said, "we're actually out of stock on right now. On the display models, I mean. We don't have anything to try out today." Lily looked at the lamp, which was fully assembled, fully illuminated, and plugged into a floor outlet. She looked at Jess. She looked back at the lamp. She was 8 years old and already understood the specific discomfort of being told something that the person saying it also knew was not true. She didn't say anything. She just reached out and touched the edge of the lamp's base with one finger, lightly, the way she touched things she was deciding about. Marcus said, "The display model is right here." "Right, but we're not currently set up to walk customers through that line today." Jess's smile held. It had the quality of something maintained through significant effort. "We have some other options in the back corner. There are some pieces in that area that might work well." She gestured toward a far corner of the store where a cluster of lower-priced items had been arranged in a display that was noticeably less curated than the rest of the floor. Marcus recognized the move. He had seen it before, in different stores, in different cities, under different lighting. The gentle redirect, the too helpful gesture toward a section of the store that was in every way that mattered, not the same as the section you had originally walked toward. "We'll keep looking," he said. Jess's smile recalibrated. "Of course. Just let me know if you need anything." She moved away with the same purposeful ambiguity with which she had arrived. Marcus stayed where he was. Lily had moved on to a display of picture frames nearby and was holding one up, turning it to catch the light, checking whether it was the right size for her drawing. Marcus watched the room. He had a habit, developed over years of site visits and stakeholder meetings, of watching rooms rather than just occupying them, noticing who moved, who paused, who looked at what and then looked away. What the flow of a space told you about how it understood itself. What he noticed now was the couple who came in through the main entrance 2 minutes later were white, perhaps in their late 30s, dressed in weekend clothes, not meaningfully different from his own. They were met within 15 seconds by the staff member from the register, who had apparently resolved whatever issue the tablet had presented, and by the person from the back wall, Jess, who had returned with renewed energy. Both staff members converged on the couple with the kind of attention that suggested genuine enthusiasm, and within less than a minute they were being led toward the central display past the table lamp that was, in Jess's words, not something customers were being walked through today, toward the kiosk of curated lighting that occupied the most prominent position on the floor. Marcus watched this. He did not react. He had a rule about reacting, which was that you should not do it until you understood what you were reacting to, whether it was a person or a policy or something that had been allowed to grow in the dark until it felt like it had always been there. Lily came back to him holding 2 picture frames, one in each hand, comparing them. "This one," she said, holding up the left, "has a better corner, but this one, the right, is the right color. Can you get both?" She considered this seriously. That would be 2 frames for one drawing. You could do a second drawing. She looked at him with the expression that meant she was deciding whether this was a real suggestion or a dad suggestion. "I'll think about it," she said finally, which was fair. She put one frame back and tucked the other under her arm and went back to looking at the lamp. It was another 4 minutes before Derek Holt appeared. Marcus knew his name from the badge, Derek's store manager, and he identified him before Derek reached them, because Derek moved like someone who had been given a specific task and had decided to complete it efficiently. He was perhaps 34, square-shouldered, in a dark blazer over a white shirt, and he had the kind of groomed confidence that came from believing for long enough that you were good at your job. He approached with his hands loosely at his sides and a smile that was warmer than Jess's, but built from similar materials. "Good afternoon," Derek said. "I'm Derek. I'm the store manager. How are you both doing today?" "Fine, thanks," Marcus said. Derek's eyes moved to Lily briefly, with the practiced warmth of someone who had been trained to acknowledge children, and then back to Marcus. "I wanted to check in personally and make sure you're finding everything okay. I notice you've been looking around for a bit. Sometimes our floor is a little tricky to navigate if you're not sure what you're looking for." Marcus looked at him. "We know what we're looking for." "Of course," Derek nodded, still smiling. "I just wanted to offer some direction. Apex has a really wide range, and not everything is priced the same. Some of our lines are really for specific lifestyle needs, if you know what I mean. We want to make sure customers find what's right for them." He paused, then added, with the specific cadence of something that had been rehearsed into naturalness, "We actually have some great options at a few of the other stores in the complex. The home section at Harmon's on level 1 tends to have a really accessible range if that's more what you're looking for today." The store was quiet enough in the moment after he finished saying this that Marcus could hear the instrumental track cycling back to something with a piano in it. Lily looked up from the lamp. Marcus looked at Derek for a long moment, not with anger, because anger would have required him to be surprised, and he wasn't surprised. He looked at Derek the way you look at something you're trying to understand fully before you decide what to do with the understanding. "What makes you think," Marcus said, "that what I'm looking for is at Harmon's?" Derek's smile held, but something behind it shifted, in the way a weight shifts when you move it slightly off-center. "I just mean we want to make sure everyone has a good experience, and sometimes our product range isn't the best fit for every customer." "Every customer," Marcus repeated. "Of course." Derek's hands moved a slight adjustment. "I just want to make sure you're comfortable." "I'm comfortable," Marcus said. "My daughter wants to look at that lamp." A beat of silence. Derek looked at the lamp. He looked at Marcus. He looked at the lamp again, as though the lamp might offer some guidance. The couple who had arrived 2 minutes after Marcus and Lily were still being attended to across the floor by Jess and the other staff member, and no one had suggested to them that Harmon's on level 1 might be more their speed. "Of course," Derek said again. His smile had thinned to something more structural, holding its shape because it had been put there, not because anything behind it was still generating it. "Let me know if you need anything." He turned and walked back toward the register, with the unhurried pace of someone performing composure. Lily watched him go. Then she looked at her father. "He wanted us to leave," she said. She didn't say it as a question. Marcus crouched down to her level. He looked at her face, her mother's eyes, her mother's directness, her own particular 8-year-old gravity, and he said, "Yes." "Why?" He thought about the answer. He thought about what he wanted his daughter to take from this moment, not what he wanted her to understand about the world, because she would understand the world well enough in time, but what he wanted her to see him do in it, right now, with her watching. "I don't know exactly why he made that particular choice," Marcus said, "but I know it wasn't about the lamp." Lily nodded slowly, working this over. Then she looked back at the lamp. "I still want it," she said. "I know." "Can we stay?" Marcus stood up. He looked across the store where the couple were now being shown a floor lamp by Jess, who was animated and helpful, and entirely unlike the person who had told Marcus there was nothing to show in this section today. "We're going to stay," Marcus said, "and then we're going to talk to someone." Marcus asked to speak to a manager. He said it clearly and without inflection to Jess, who had drifted back toward the register after the couple she'd been attending moved into a browsing rhythm of their own. Jess looked at him for a moment with the particular expression of someone calculating whether this was going to become a problem, and deciding on balance that it probably was. "Derek is our manager on duty today," she said. "I just spoke with Derek," Marcus said. "I'd like to speak with the general manager, or whoever is in charge above Derek." "Derek is the store manager," Jess said, as though this resolved the question. "Is there a regional manager or a district contact?" A pause. "Derek handles all customer concerns when he's on duty." Marcus nodded once slowly and said, "All right." He didn't push it further. He had learned over the years that there was a particular kind of wall you encountered in institutional settings, not built from malice, but from structure, from the way that organizations create layers that each refer you back to the layer you just came from. Pushing against the wall didn't move it. Understanding the wall was what moved it. He turned back to where Lily was sitting on a small ottoman near the lamp display, her notebook paper list on her knee, the picture frame tucked beside her. She was not looking at the lamp anymore. She was watching a woman across the store arrange a set of ceramic objects on a shelf with the patient precision of someone who cared about getting things right. This was Priya Marcus, had caught the name on her badge when she passed earlier, and she was perhaps 26, moving through her task with a kind of focused quiet that suggested she was good at her job and knew it and didn't need to announce it. Marcus had also noticed that Priya, in the time he and Lily had been in the store, had looked in their direction twice and looked away each time before he could catch her eye. Not the dismissive looking away he'd seen from the others. Something different, the way you look away from a thing you've seen before and don't know how to address. Derek reappeared from somewhere near the back. He had the look of someone who had been watching from a distance and had decided that re-engaging was better than waiting to see what developed. He came to Marcus with his hands in his blazer pockets, a posture that was designed to read as relaxed, and projected instead the specific tension of someone trying to look relaxed. "I understand you had some more questions," Derek said. "I asked to speak to someone above you," Marcus said. "Your staff member said that's not available." "I handle all concerns in the store." Derek kept his tone measured. "I'm happy to help resolve whatever the issue is." "The issue," Marcus said, "is that your staff told me the product my daughter is interested in wasn't available for viewing, and then made it available for 2 other customers who came in after us. And then you suggested I shop at a different store." Derek's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "I was offering guidance on our product range. We have different price points across the floor, and I want to make sure customers find what fits their needs." "What price point did you assume I was looking for?" A silence. "I wasn't assuming anything," Derek said. "I was trying to be helpful." "You suggested Harmon's," Marcus said, "on level 1, without asking me what I was looking for or what my budget was or anything else. You made a decision about what I could afford based on looking at me." "I make recommendations to all kinds of customers," Derek said, and his voice had taken on the particular quality of someone who has decided they are being treated unfairly and is now building a case for it. "This is a premium retail environment, and part of my job is helping customers find the right setting for their needs. That's not discrimination. That's customer service." Marcus let that sit for a moment. Around them, the store continued its quiet commerce, a couple near the textiles, the instrumental track on its loop. The light through the large windows catching the surface of things. "What's your full name?" Marcus asked. Something moved across Derek's face. Derek Holt. Marcus committed it to memory, not that he needed to work hard for it, because Derek Holt, store manager, was now a fixed point in a specific sequence of events that Marcus was quietly constructing. He had his name. He had the specific language Derek had used, which he was certain had been used before to other people on other Saturdays. He had the contrast between how Jess had spoken to him and how she had spoken to the couple behind him. He had Priya looking away. "Thank you," Marcus said. He did not say it in a way that implied gratitude. He said it in a way that implied he was done with this particular part of the conversation. He went back to Lily, who had stood up from the ottoman and was looking at the lamp again with the focus of someone who had decided that the lamp was still worth wanting, regardless of what had happened around it. Marcus stood beside her. He put one hand on her shoulder lightly. "Daddy," Lily said without looking away from the lamp. "That man doesn't like us being here." "No," Marcus said. "I don't think he does." "Is it because of how we look?" He had thought about how to answer this question since the first time it had become relevant in his daughter's life, which had been earlier than he'd expected and in a context smaller than this one. A birthday party, a playground, a moment at a restaurant when the table next to them had been seated before them despite arriving later, and everyone at their table had noticed and said nothing. And they had all, in their own ways, decided what to do with the noticing. He had thought about how much truth to give her and in what form, and the answer he had arrived at over time was that children deserved the truth in the full amount, just not all at once, and not without the part about what you do with it. "I think he made some assumptions about us," Marcus said, based on what he could see. "That's not fair." "No." "What are we going to do?" Marcus looked at the lamp. It was a good lamp, round and warm, and exactly the kind of thing he wanted for his daughter's room. He thought about the contract on his CFO's desk, the one with Apex Lifestyle's name on it, the renewal terms he had not yet signed off on, the conversation he had been planning to have next Thursday in a conference room with the regional vice president and 2 people from the leasing team. He thought about the alcove on the east side of the building where someone had replaced a reclaimed timber bench with an aluminum fixture without asking him. He thought about the things that happened in his building when no one was watching. "We're going to stay a little longer," he said, "and I'm going to make a call." He took out his phone and checked his calendar, not to make the call now, but to confirm something. The meeting to review the Apex lease renewal was scheduled for the following Thursday at 2 o'clock. James Whitfield had sent the draft terms last week, and Marcus had not yet responded. He had been intending to approve it. The numbers were fine. The performance metrics were strong. It had seemed like a straightforward renewal. Marcus put his phone back in his pocket. He took Lily's hand, and they walked toward the far end of the store, past Priya, who was still arranging her ceramic pieces. As they passed, Marcus glanced at her. She looked up, and this time she didn't look away. She held his gaze for just a second, and in that second there was something he recognized. The look of someone who had seen things they couldn't fix and had been waiting, without quite knowing it, for the moment when the person with the ability to fix them would walk in. Marcus gave her a small nod. She looked back at her ceramics. Lily had found a small decorative candle in a glass jar near the end of an aisle. She held it up to her nose. "Ocean," she said, with the satisfaction of a person who has confirmed a theory. "Good?" Marcus asked. "Good," she confirmed. They stood there for a moment in the quiet of the store, the soft instrumental track playing, the afternoon light coming in flat and gold through the west-facing windows. Marcus looked at the room. He looked at Derek Holt, who had returned to a position near the register and was looking at his phone. He looked at Priya, who had finished with her ceramic display and was now moving with the same quiet purpose toward a different section of the floor. He thought next Thursday. He thought the draft renewal on James's desk. He thought the things that grow in the dark when no one walks through the door to see them. Then his phone rang. The number on the screen was James Whitfield's. Marcus looked at it for 1 second, then answered. "James?" "Marcus." James had the clipped, efficient phone manner of someone who had learned over 15 years of working for Marcus that his boss preferred the information before the preamble. Sorry to call on a Saturday. The Apex Lifestyle renewal, I need your sign-off on the amended Clause 14 before I can send it back to their legal team. They want it by end of business today. What's the amendment? They're asking to extend the co-tenancy protection window from 90 days to 150. I think it's reasonable given the anchor tenant situation, but you said you wanted to review any substantive changes before I move. Marcus was standing in the middle of the Apex Lifestyle store. Lily had moved 2 steps away to look at a small arrangement of framed prints on the wall. The instrumental track played its loop. Somewhere behind him, he was aware that Derek Holt was still near the register. He did not look in that direction. Clause 14, Marcus said. The co-tenancy protection for Apex Lifestyle Meridian Commons in the current renewal cycle. Right, James said. Lease IDAL 074 if you need it for your records. I've got it. What's their regional contact on the renewal? Karen Solis, Regional VP. She's the one pushing for the extended window. All right. Tell their legal team I'll have a decision on Clause 14 by Monday morning. Not end of business today. A pause. James was professional enough not to ask why the timeline had shifted. Monday morning. Got it. Anything else you need from me? Not right now. Marcus paused. James, has there been any compliance reporting from the Apex location at Meridian? Customer experience staff conduct anything in the last 12 months? A longer pause. Not that's come to me directly. You want me to pull what's on record? Monday, Marcus said. Pull whatever exists. I want to look at it before I sign off on the renewal. Done, James said. Enjoy your Saturday. I'm trying, Marcus said, and ended the call. He looked up. Derek Holt was no longer near the register. He was standing approximately 8 feet away in the aisle that led back toward the central display, with the particular stillness of someone who has just understood something and has not yet decided what to do about the understanding. He was holding a tablet against his chest, and his expression had undergone a change that Marcus could only describe as a systematic disassembly, the pieces of the confidence. He had been projecting were still there, but they were no longer in the arrangement they'd been in before. They were just pieces, Marcus had said clearly and without lowering his voice, because there had been no reason to lower his voice. The name of the store, the location, the lease identification number, and the name of the regional VP currently managing the renewal conversation. He had said these things while standing in the middle of the store in question, holding his phone with the same calm that he held everything. Derek stared at him. Marcus held his gaze briefly, without expression. Then from the direction of the south entrance, the secondary entrance off the second-floor corridor, a voice said, "Mr. Delaney." Marcus turned. The man walking toward him was Calvin Reese, who had worked as a senior security officer at Meridian Commons for 3 years before leaving last spring to take a position with a private firm closer to home. He was a broad-shouldered man in his mid-40s, with an easy stride and the kind of face that organized itself naturally into warmth. He was carrying a small Apex shopping bag, which meant he had come in through the south entrance earlier, and Marcus simply hadn't seen him. "Calvin," Marcus said. Calvin Reese extended his hand and Marcus shook it. "I thought that was you," Calvin said. "I wasn't sure I didn't want to call out across the store if I'd gotten it wrong." "You didn't get it wrong." "Good," Calvin smiled. "My wife has been after me about this place for months. Finally came in today to see what all the fuss was about." He glanced down at Lily, who was looking up at him with the frank curiosity of a child assessing an adult she hasn't met before. "Hey there, I'm Calvin." "I'm Lily," she said. "I know," Calvin said. "Your dad used to keep your drawings on his desk. The one of the dog is very accurate." Lily looked pleased. "I practiced a lot." Calvin looked back at Marcus. His expression shifted warm still, but carrying something else now. Something he was deciding whether to say. He said it. "Mr. Delaney, I wanted to say thank you." Again. Properly. The scholarship fund for Jalen? That was more than we expected. He's doing well. First semester's done. He's studying engineering. He paused. I know you said it was anonymous, but he figured it out, and he asked me to say thank you if I ever ran into you. He doesn't need to thank me, Marcus said. Tell him to do good work. That's enough. Calvin nodded, and there was a weight in the nod. The weight of something that goes beyond transaction, that belongs to a longer story between two people who've been neighbors in the same community, even when they weren't in the same room. I will, he said. I will definitely tell him that. The store had gone quieter. Not silent, the instrumental track was still playing, and the other customers were still present. But the specific quality of activity near the register and the central display had shifted. Jess had stopped what she was doing. Priya had stopped what she was doing. Derek Holt had not moved from where he was standing 8 feet away. Marcus became aware, without looking directly at any of them, that the room had reorganized its attention. Calvin didn't seem to notice. Or, if he noticed, he understood without needing it explained. He had worked in the building for 3 years. He had walked its corridors on overnight shifts and learned its rhythms the way you learn the rhythms of a place you are responsible for. He knew whose building it was. Well, Calvin said, I should let you get back to your afternoon. It was good to see you, Mr. Delaney. Lily. He gave Lily a small nod. She nodded back gravely. He moved toward the south entrance, bag in hand, and the door closed gently behind him. Marcus stood where he was. Lily came to stand beside him. She had the ocean candle in one hand and the picture frame under her arm. He did not look at Derek Holt. He looked at the lamp still lit, still warm, still plugged into its floor outlet in the section where customers were not, apparently, being walked through the product line today. Can I pick it up? Lily asked, meaning the lamp. Let's ask someone, Marcus said. He walked to Priya. She looked up at him when he approached, and in her expression, he saw the thing he had seen before, the recognition of someone who has been waiting without knowing they were waiting. Her hands were very still on the edge of the shelf she'd been working near. My daughter is interested in the lamp in the west display, Marcus said. The round one near the window. We'd like to see it properly, and we'd like to talk to someone about purchasing it. Priya looked at him for a moment. Then she said in a voice that was quiet and entirely steady, Of course. I'll walk you through it. And she led them across the floor, past the central display, past the register where Jess was standing very still, past the point where Derek Holt remained in the aisle, a man whose name Marcus now had, and whose behavior Marcus had now watched across the full arc of an afternoon. Past all of it, across the clean, pale floors of the store, toward the lamp. Marcus heard, rather than saw, Derek Holt begin moving behind him, but he didn't stop walking. There was nothing Derek could say right now that would change the shape of what had already happened. The shape was fixed. The record of it was fixed. The question now was not what had happened. The question was, what happened next? That question Marcus knew had an answer. He had been building toward it for the last 90 minutes, patiently, without reacting the way you build toward anything that matters. He just needed to make one more call. Sandra Okafor picked up on the second ring. She was the general manager of Meridian Commons, 51 years old, 22 years in commercial property management. The kind of person who answered her phone on Saturdays because she understood better than most that the work of keeping a building honest did not observe weekends. She had worked for Delaney Properties for 4 years, and she knew Marcus's voice on the phone the way she knew the sound of the building's HVAC system, instantly and without needing it announced. Marcus, she said. Sandra, I'm at Apex Lifestyle, Level 2 East Wing. I need you here. A pause. Not hesitation, but the precise 1-second recalibration of someone determining what category of event they're responding to. 20 minutes, she said. Take 15. He hung up. Priya had walked them through the lamp with the careful, genuine attention of someone who actually knew the product. She explained the dimmer function, the bulb type, the manufacturer's warranty, the fact that it came in 3 sizes, and the medium was, in her honest opinion, the most versatile. She did not perform enthusiasm. She offered information. Lily asked 3 questions, and Priya answered all 3 without talking down to her or over her head. And Marcus watched his daughter's face do the thing it did when she was being taken seriously. A small unclenching, a settling, the return of her full attention. He was watching Priya and thinking, this is what the store could be. This exact thing right here. From across the floor, Derek Holt had spent the past 7 minutes making himself busy with things that did not require him to come near the lamp display. He was talking to Jess now, quietly, with the body language of someone running a damage calculation. Jess was listening with the expression of someone who understood that the calculation was coming out badly and had not yet decided what her own role in that outcome was going to be. Marcus said to Priya, "We'll take the lamp. Medium size if you have it in stock." He paused. "We'll also take the candle." Lily held up the ocean candle, confirming its continued candidacy. "Let me check on the medium for you," Priya said, and moved toward the back with the assurance of someone who knew exactly where to look. Marcus turned and faced the floor. Derek saw him looking and made the decision which Marcus recognized as a bad one the moment Derek began walking toward them to come over. "Mr. Delaney," Derek said. Marcus waited. "I want to apologize for any confusion earlier." Derek's voice had the specific quality of an apology that is not an apology, smooth on the surface, carrying beneath it the distinct current of a man trying to reclassify what had happened as a misunderstanding rather than a choice. "I may have communicated some things in a way that wasn't clear. That wasn't my intention." "What was your intention?" Marcus asked. Derek blinked. "I was trying to be helpful. You told me," Marcus said, "that my daughter and I might be more comfortable at Harmon's on level 1. You said it after your staff member told me a product line wasn't available for viewing, and then demonstrated it to 2 other customers who came in after us." He said it without heat, laying the sequence out like a set of documents on a table. "What part of that was about being helpful?" Derek opened his mouth and then did not say anything for a moment. He was a man who had spent years in a position where his version of events was the operative one, where the word of a store manager on the floor of his store was the version that made it into the record. He was realizing in real time that this version of events had a witness count he had not anticipated, and that the person in front of him was not going to let the sequence be reclassified. "I understand you're upset," Derek began. "I'm not upset," Marcus said. It was true. He had the focused clarity of someone who has done something difficult for a long time and gotten good at it. "I'm asking you a question. What was your intention when you suggested my daughter and I shop at a different store?" Derek stopped. "I was trying to direct you towards something that might be a better fit." "Based on what information?" Silence. "Based on what you could see when you looked at us," Marcus said. Not a question, a statement of what they both knew. He kept his voice level, not gentle, not hard, just precise. "You looked at a man and his daughter and made a decision about where they belonged, in this store, in this mall." Derek said nothing. "That's not a misunderstanding," Marcus said. "That's a choice." Behind Derek, the south entrance opened. Sandra Okafor came through it with the measured efficiency of someone who had walked through difficult rooms before and had no particular anxiety about doing so again. She was a tall woman in a dark coat with close-cropped gray hair and reading glasses pushed up on her forehead, and she crossed the floor of Apex Lifestyle toward Marcus with the specific authority of someone who knew exactly what building she was standing in and who had asked her to come. She stopped beside Marcus and looked at Derek. "I'm Sandra Okafor," she said. "General Manager, Meridian Commons. Mr. Holt? Derek looked at her. He looked at Marcus. Something in his face had been making a slow adjustment ever since Calvin Reese had walked through the south entrance and said, Mr. Delaney. And it completed its movement now. The confidence collapsed inward all at once, the way a structure collapses when the load-bearing element finally fails. I'd like to understand what happened in this store this afternoon, Sandra said. She had a notepad. She did not open it, yet she was the kind of person who took notes after listening, not during. From the beginning, Derek said. I think there's been a misunderstanding. Sandra said, walk me through it. What followed took 40 minutes. Marcus stood to the side for most of it, his hand on Lily's shoulder. Priya had returned with the lamp, the medium in stock exactly where she'd expected it to be, and she set it near the register and then stood near it, and when Sandra asked if any staff could speak to what they'd observed, Priya stepped forward before anyone else could. She spoke in the same quiet, even voice she'd used when she explained the lamp's dimmer function to Lily. She said that Derek had, on multiple occasions over the past 4 months, directed certain customers away from premium product lines. She said she had noted it. She said she had not known what to do about it because Derek was her direct manager, and the process for raising a concern above him was not clearly communicated in the store's staff onboarding materials. She said she was telling the truth, and she understood there might be consequences for saying it. Sandra wrote for a long time on her notepad. Derek's version of the afternoon was detailed and earnest, and explained everything in the language of customer service and brand standard and product knowledge. And the explanation was internally consistent if you accepted its first premise, which was that he had simply been reading the needs of the room and acting accordingly. He said this several times in different formulations, each one slightly more refined than the last. The way you refine something when you can sense it isn't landing. Sandra looked at him when he finished and said, the store's security footage is part of the building's integrated system. I can pull this afternoon's recording of this floor. Derek said nothing. I can also pull the records from the last quarter, Sandra said. Foot traffic conversion interactions flagged by the system. If there's a pattern here, it will be in the numbers. I'd like to call Karen Solis, Derek said. His voice had changed younger somehow than it had been. The voice of someone looking for a structure to shelter in. My regional VP. You can do that, Sandra said. While you're doing that, I'm going to pull the footage. She stepped away and made a call of her own. Marcus watched her go and thought about Karen Solis, who had told James Whitfield that she wanted the co-tenancy protection extended from 90 days to 150. He thought about what James was going to pull on Monday morning when he looked at the compliance records for this location. He thought about what the footage was going to show. He looked at Lily, who was sitting on the small ottoman near the lamp, the same ottoman she'd been sitting on earlier, with her notebook paper list on her knee. She had drawn a small check mark next to lamp. She had not yet drawn a check mark next to the candle, which was still in her hand, because she was being very precise about what constituted a completed item. You okay? Marcus asked, crouching down. She considered the question with her characteristic seriousness. I'm a little hungry, she said. We'll eat after. Can we go to the place with the soup dumplings? Yes, she nodded, satisfied with the contract. Then she looked at him with her mother's eyes. Dad, is that man going to get in trouble? Marcus thought about how to answer this. He thought about the truth and what form to give it, and how much of it she was ready for, and how much she already knew. He made some choices today, Marcus said, and choices have consequences. That's not punishment, that's just how things work. Lily absorbed this. What about the lady? The one who explained the lamp? Priya. She was nice. A pause. She's going to be okay. Marcus looked across the store to where Priya was standing near the register, her hands folded in front of her, waiting in the patient way of someone who has done something they know is right and is now prepared to live with whatever comes from having done it. Yeah, Marcus said. I think she's going to be okay. Lily looked at the candle in her hand. She looked at the lamp on the counter. She looked at her list. "Dad," she said. "Yeah." "Can I have the lamp in the moon color Priya said they have it in moon color?" "We'll ask Priya," Marcus said. Derek Holt's employment with Apex Lifestyle ended that afternoon. Sandra Okafor made the recommendation formally, and it was upheld within the hour by the regional VP, not Karen Solis, who had been unreachable by phone, but her supervisor, a man named Gregory Park, who had gotten a call from the legal team at Apex's corporate office, who had gotten a call from Marcus's office, who had been called by Marcus from the parking structure, while Lily ate a pretzel and looked out at the city through the glass wall, and said the lights looked like the inside of something thinking. And Marcus had said, "Yes, they do." The decision to terminate was based on witness testimony from Calvin Reese and Priya Kapoor. The security footage from the building's integrated system covering the 2-hour window of the afternoon, and the pattern that emerged from 3 months of internal sales data when Sandra's team ran the numbers on Sunday morning. A pattern that showed certain customers were being redirected away from premium product lines at rates inconsistent with the store's overall conversion metrics. And the inconsistency correlated with enough variables that no one from corporate wanted to be the person who argued it was coincidence. Gregory Park called Marcus on Sunday evening and apologized. Marcus listened to the apology and said, "The apology I need you to make is to the store." "I understand," Gregory said. "I mean that structurally," Marcus said. "I need Apex to make a structural change to how staff are trained and how customers are treated at every location in my properties. That goes into the lease renewal as a condition, not a suggestion, a condition." A silence on Gregory's end. "That's a significant." "It's a condition," Marcus said again. Not loudly, just completely. The silence this time was shorter. "Yes," Gregory said. "We can work with that." 6 weeks later, Marcus came back to Meridian Commons on a Saturday. He had Lily with him. She was wearing the sneakers with the paint smudge on the left toe, which had still not fully washed out, and she was carrying the picture frame she had bought 6 weeks ago because she had finally finished the second drawing, not of the dog, but of the building's atrium, the way the light came in through the skylights in the afternoon. Rendered in pencil on paper, with careful attention to the angles and the way the glass railing caught the glow. She had decided it should hang in Marcus's office. They went past the alcove on the east side where the reclaimed timber bench had been reinstalled. Marcus had found who had authorized the replacement and had a conversation about it that was brief and not unkind. And the original bench was back by the 3rd week, returned from a storage unit where it had been sitting since the original facilities manager had decided it looked too informal. Marcus had looked at the bench for a long moment when it was returned and had not said anything because it was the bench and it was back and that was the thing. Lily stopped and pressed her hand against the wood. "See?" she said. "Better." They went up the escalator through the atrium, past the glass railing and the afternoon light, and Marcus stood for a moment looking out at the space the way he always looked at it, as something that was still becoming. He thought about the drawing under Lily's arm, the one of the light coming in at angles through the skylights, and he thought about how the same thing looked different depending on where you were standing and what you knew about the room you were in. On level 2, Apex Lifestyle had a new acting manager. Priya Kapoor had been formally appointed to the role 3 weeks after the events of the previous Saturday, following a review process that Gregory Park had overseen personally. She had added 2 staff members to the floor team, both of whom had gone through the new customer experience training that Apex had built in partnership with a firm Marcus's leasing team recommended. The training was not yet perfect. These things were never perfect right away, but it was written down and it was required. And it was no longer just a phone call you received from a regional VP telling you what to prioritize. Priya saw them when they came through the main entrance. She was talking to a new staff member near the central display, demonstrating something about the arrangement of the lighting section. And she stopped when she saw Marcus and Lily, and came toward them with the same quiet assurance she'd had 6 weeks ago. The assurance that had always been there, waiting for the room to be the kind of room where it could come out. "Mr. Delaney," she said. Lily smiled. "We came back for the moon one," she said. "My dad said we could get the moon color." Priya looked at Marcus. "I set one aside," she said. "I thought you might." Marcus looked at her for a moment, this woman who had stepped forward in a room where stepping forward was risky, who had spoken the truth clearly and without performance, who was now standing in this store with her name on the door, earned by the kind of quiet, persistent integrity that most systems fail to notice until someone forces them to look. "How's it going?" he asked, meaning the role, the store, the work of making the room what it was supposed to be. Priya considered the question with the same honesty she brought to everything else. "It's early," she said, "but it's going." "That's how all good things go," Marcus said. She nodded once, and there was something in the nod that didn't need further translation. The acknowledgement between two people who both understood what it costs to build something, of what it meant to be standing here and getting to try. Then she led them to the lamp. Across the floor, a family had just come in, a mother, a father, 2 children in matching sneakers. The younger one carrying a piece of paper, folded the way children fold things they want to keep safe. A new staff member moved toward them, immediately, warmly, before they'd taken 3 steps past the entrance. "Welcome in," the staff member said. "Can I help you find something today?" The younger child held up the piece of paper, a list written in careful block letters. Marcus did not watch what happened next. He knew what happened next. He had written the conditions into the lease, and Sandra had put them into the building's operating standards. And Priya had put them into the training. And the training was in the hands of people who had been chosen because they understood what the work was actually for. He looked at his daughter, who was standing in front of the moon lamp with her hands clasped behind her back, serious and satisfied, and fully present, the way she always was when she was somewhere she had decided she belonged. There were rooms in this world that had been designed to make certain people feel like they didn't belong in them, built that way, or allowed to drift that way through the slow accumulation of unchallenged choices. Marcus had spent his adult life understanding this and deciding what to do with the understanding. Not just for himself, for the version of his daughter who would walk through rooms after him, and the version of her children who would walk through rooms after that. You built what you could. You held it to account. You kept walking in. Lily reached out and touched the base of the moon lamp the same way she had touched it 6 weeks ago, lightly, with one finger, the way you touch something you're deciding about. Then she looked up at him. "This one," she said. "This one," he agreed. If this story stayed with you, if you've ever walked into a room and felt the moment the room decided what you were, share it with someone who needs to hear it. We'll see you next time.